everybody. Welcome back to the PDPreps Podcast. I think this is episode 18 total, I want to say, but third of this year's high school football season. Another great week of football, lots of action to get through. Obviously, I was out of town getting married, but Gus was holding it down. So we'll still be taking you through all of last week's action, updating some rankings, and then obviously going through our predictions as well. So Gus, why don't we just get right into it here? I mean, talk about the game of the week. You were there, obviously. Windsor Escalon, probably one of the biggest matchups for Windsor the entire season, and it didn't really disappoint, did it?
Nope, that was an awesome game. And before I get into that, I just want to say congrats to you on getting hitched. Nice ring you got on there. But yeah, definitely missed you last week. But yeah, big congrats to you and the missus. So but yeah, no, it was a game of the week. Lived up to the hype. Escalon won 42-39. Escalon they won state last year in Division 4 AA, and they also beat Windsor last year by 2 touchdowns. So definitely an improvement for Windsor. But yeah, this was a tough one. I mean, this is a game that Windsor is definitely going to want back. They actually had a 2-score lead in the third quarter, and Escalon is a very they run a wing T offense, so very, very run heavy. And you're thinking, all right, Windsor's up by 11 points midway through the third. This is probably going to be a very tough spot for Escalon to be in, to make up some ground there. They really couldn't stop Windsor. Windsor had, Judson Anderson had a huge game passing. That was, I guess, the game plan was to take it through the air, and they did that with a lot of success. I mean, Judson had like 360 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. But really, the game kind of swung on he threw 2 interceptions, and that's kind of where the game swung in the second half. After Windsor went up 25-14, Escalon comes back, scores a touchdown, and then on very next drive, they get a pick 6 of Judson and take it back for a touchdown, and all of a sudden they're up. And we're like, and it's kind of like, holy cow, game swung on its head, in like basically a 2-minute span there. So. And then Windsor actually, again, the bad breaks kept coming. Windsor had like a 60-yard touchdown call, on their very next possession, called back due to a holding penalty, and then Escalon scored again, right after that. So, Windsor, Windsor had the game in hand and just couldn't hang on to it. But yeah, I mean, just a really, really good matchup between two very, very, very good teams. I mean, again, Windsor really didn't run the ball much. I think they only, ran for like 60 yards, and that was kind of the game plan. That I had heard was, they were going to air it out. Teams hadn't really passed the ball a lot against Escalon, and that's Windsor's strength, is all their speed and athleticism on the outside. So, Windsor tried to exploit that, and they did. But, again, it was just the second half turnovers that really kind of, really killed them there at the end. And I mean, again, to their credit too, it was, close late. Windsor got a touchdown, their last touchdown, I think, with like a minute or 2 left or something like that. I don't, remember the exact timing, but, and then they nearly recovered the onside kick too. So, it was very close all the way down to the wire. So, but, a very, very good game between two very, very good teams who, like DJ said, Windsor's head coach, I think both these teams should be playing late into the season. So, barn burner for sure. But I'd say the other biggest game of the week, and I wrote about this a bit in our, analysis piece, over the weekend, but, Cardinal Newman, took it to Vacaville 27-7. Big upset. I'd probably say in a lot of Northern California, people's books, we both picked Newman, we both picked Vacaville. A bunch of other people also picked Vacaville. And, this is, shows what we know. Obviously not a whole lot, but Newman raced out to a 20-0 lead, and then Vacaville, I think, scored their only touchdown on like a block punt that they returned or something. So, just a dominant defensive game for the Cardinals. I think they held, Vacaville's quarterback, I believe, is committed to Air Force, and they held him to something like, I think -4 yards rushing or something like that, or -4 yards, something crazy. But I think they held Vacaville to like under 100 yards of offense for the entire game. So, just a really, really, really big, result for Newman, kind of going into, the last couple of games of their non-league schedule. They have Vintage this week, which should be a good challenge. Vintage, obviously, one of the better teams over in Napa, but I'd say Newman should definitely be favored, but definitely a result that kind of turned some heads, for sure, in Northern California. A couple of guys had big games. Zach Holman is really coming on strong as probably one of the better backs in the county. Jason Coulter, their Murray Carrillo transfer quarterback, he had 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's kind of settling into that. Against a very, very good Vacaville defense. That Vacaville defense had, I think, only allowed 1 touchdown their first 2 games. And then, sophomore receiver Jonah Bertoli had a couple touchdown catches too. So, just a lot of guys kind of stepping up. I know that we both kind of had some questions about, what that Newman offense would look like, but through 2 games, so far it's clicking, it's clicking well, and Newman is looking like a well-oiled machine. But yeah, what do you think about those 2 results? I know that you were a little busy over the weekend, but, just kind of, seeing how those things played out. What do you think about how Newman and Windsor are looking so far?
Yeah, some people definitely let us know about our pick against Newman and picking up Vacaville. That's for sure. Definitely got that on Twitter over the weekend as well. But no, I mean, we all knew Escalon was going to be one of Windsor's biggest tests this season. There was no doubt about that. Obviously, last year, Escalon beat him decently, pretty handily. I'm a little. I will admit I'm a little surprised about the Newman score. I thought it was going to be a lot of it, definitely closer if Newman had won. I know last year it was like 14-7, and star running back Santino
total
Acevedo.
rock fight last year.
Yeah, Santino Acevedo injured his ankle that game, and all these shenanigans. But yeah, I definitely thought although we picked Vacaville to win, I thought Newman, if they had won, it would have been a lot closer. So, credit where credit's due, man. Newman's defense has come to play this year, and I do think a big thing is Matt Hilden transitioning back to the line from quarterback as well gives him a huge boost. As well. I do want to talk about, though, because I was following this one. If there was any game I was following, it was this one. The Redwood 35, Rancho Cotati 34. No one, I don't think in their right mind, would have predicted Redwood to win this game at all. The last couple of years these teams have played, it's been all Rancho Cotati. Last year they won by 28. And Gus, I think we would say this is a massive, pretty big upset. No doubt about it. But I mean, obviously I couldn't cover it too much, but when I saw that score, that was pretty bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, Redwood graduated a ton of their guys from last year's team, and again, Brady Weingart, graduated. He's a Cal now. I think all their top receivers, all their top running backs, I think all graduated. So they have no one back from last year's team. And again, Rancho also has to replace a lot, but still, I just on paper, it looked like Redwood was a lot better last year than they were this year. And again, shows what we know. Yeah, I mean, just to grind it out, win here from Redwood. They get the game-winning touchdown on 4th down. I think with 16 seconds left at Rancho's 4-yard line. Really dramatic kind of couple minutes there. Rancho had the ball at midfield with 2 minutes left, and they had a 4th and inches. And if they got it, the game was over. I think Redwood was out of timeouts. It was out of timeouts at that point. Redwood stops Rancho, gets the ball back in midfield again. 2 minutes, no timeouts. They convert a 4th down. They think they get some crazy like Hail Mary down inside Rancho's 10. And then, they, spike it, whatever, stop the clock. And then, are able to get off, a few last second plays there and then get the game winning score on 4th down. So, when I talked to Gehrig Hodling, Rancho's coach after the game, he's like, yeah, our youth definitely showed today. Our inexperience, hurt us today. And yeah, I mean, again, that's what we had kind of talked about this year with Rancho kind of coming into the season was they had so many guys to replace from last year's team and so many big players too, that they had to have some other guys step up. And, the first game against Petaluma, it was kind of a feel it out game, both teams kind of had their issues. And then, this game for sure was a big test, for a team that, again, a lot of these guys are young, or at least varsity young. And yeah, it was just one of these games where I think if you have a couple guys who are more experienced, you probably pull this one out. So, definitely an upset, I think, in our books. We'll see how Redwood kind of does the rest of the way this year, and same thing with Rancho. I have faith that Rancho will figure this out. It's early in the season. I think they'll just get better with time, and same thing with Redwood too. I'm kind of curious to see how they kind of play out in the MCAL as well. But yeah, it's looking like they should be, one of the better teams in the MCAL this year for sure. But yeah, just again, also shout out to Jacob Pruitt. I know it wasn't a losing effort, but just another massive monster game from him. 12 carries for 261 yards and 5 touchdowns. He had touchdown runs of like 81, like he had an 80-yard touchdown, multiple 60-yard touchdowns, and then like a 20-yarder and a 4-yarder or something. So dude is just a beast. But yeah, like Garrick said, they need some other guys to step up, and so far that hasn't quite happened yet. So yeah, Rancho, Rancho, we'll see if they can bounce back this week. They have a good, big road test at Sacramento. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, also too, this is a big game or a big result as far as playoff seedings goes, since both teams are in NCS Division II. So that could come back to hurt Rancho come playoff seeding time. So we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, no, definitely a surprising result, though, I'd say for sure.
No, yeah, but heck, this for all that youth that Ranchers has, I mean, we say this all the time, but this adversity could certainly help them down the road as well.
Yep.
In those kind of big games, come Windsor, come Newman, come some of these other big games, even Sacramento last week, as you mentioned.
Playoffs too, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Gus, any other games that kind of caught your eye want to take a look at?
St. Vincent handled Oakland Tech pretty well, 148-19. St. Vincent is looking really, really solid again this year. Their defense too looks again, they had a very good defense last year, but it looks even better this year. All 19 of Oakland Tech's points came in the fourth quarter. St. Vincent was up 34-0 at that point. I think they had a bunch of reserves in. So some garbage time points for Oakland Tech, and kind of the same thing that happened in the De Anza game last week too, was, I think De Anza had like two scores off a turnover or something like that. And outside of that, it was like a pretty, defensive clinic. So St. Vincent rolling right now. Obviously they had some drama, last week, their, principal Pat Daly was let go kind of very suddenly. And I know it's shaken up the school a little bit, especially the coaches over there. He's been a big reason for, the athletic resurgence over at St. Vincent. I know he hired Trent Herzog, he hired Tom Bonfili. He's kind of been, this guy who's helped kind of lead St. Vincent, back to, thrown some life back into their sports. So we're still not quite sure. There's been no, I guess, official reason for why he was let go. So I guess we'll wait and see on that part. But yeah, I know that a lot of the coaches and a lot of the players took it pretty hard. So Trent Herzog, their football coach, was saying it's like, it took us it took us a while, on Saturday to kind of get our heads right and get into the game, because people were still kind of dealing with that. So but yeah, no, I mean, they shook it off, and 26-6 or 26-0 at halftime and 34-0 by the fourth. It was all St. Vincent. I mean, they're looking like, bona fide, the best team in Division 6, I'd say. Just through 2 games at least. But yeah, I mean, Gabe Casanova, sophomore quarterback, he's just had a monster first couple of games. Probably is one of his better performances this past weekend. 263 passing, 18 of 22 through the air, and 3 touchdowns. And Jack Davis too has emerged as a big utility offensive guy for St. Vincent. He can play wide receiver, he can play running back. Just kind of a plug it in, just a winner. A guy who can do it all. But just committed to Claremont McKenna too. So congrats to Jack. He'll be playing on in college. But yeah, 118 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns too, with 65 yards on the ground. And yeah, just one of many weapons. I'd say he's probably the lead guy in that offense. But again, 4 other guys caught touchdowns in that game too. So a lot of good pieces and a great start so far for St. Vincent this year. Expecting big things for them going forward. And yeah, I mean, this result, especially coupled with Rancho Cotati's loss, really made some questions, for our rankings this week. But we'll get to those here in a sec after we recap everything. But another game that was interesting too was Ukiah really came back down to earth after they whooped Montgomery in week 1. He lost by 35 to Dublin. It was 49-14. It's only a 1-score game at the half. Dublin led 14-7, but then I think it was Ukiah. Ukiah had like 2 or 3 pick sixes, I want to say, in the second half. And that was kind of the game there. It sounded like they kind of just couldn't come back from that. So tough one for Ukiah. They have another tough game this week. Casa Grande is coming up to town. Casa's coming off of a very good win this week, and I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, just Ukiah is still without a few of their top offensive players, and Shea Parrish and Zach Martinez, which I did learn this after last week's pod, but if you get ejected for fighting in high school football, and I think this is a rule change this year, you lose 3 games, or you're suspended for 3 games. So those guys will also still be ineligible next week and the week after, but then they can return after that. So a couple of guys to replace for sure. But I saw Ukiah in action that week 1, and they definitely have talent and pieces. It's just can they kind of stay in games, and a couple pick sixes will really, I think any team will probably be affected by that. So just a tough one for Ukiah. But yeah, a couple other quick hitters before we kind of move on. A lot of teams performed well this week. Annalee routed Eureka. I don't think Eureka is a very good team this year, but Jake Lewis passed for 235 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ben Stewart had 187 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a 75-yard rushing touchdown, I think, on their first possession. So all Annalee in that one. They're 2-0. They're off to a good start.
Could be sneaky. Could be sneaky.
I know. We had a lot of questions again with them this year too, but so far their offenses look good. Their defenses look much improved. So shout out Jared Brown. I know that was a big point for you this year. Was we're not going to give up 20 points a game, and so far they're off to a great start. So
we know you're watching, Jared. So.
Yeah, you're watching. So shouts out. Another big game. Montgomery had a good bounce back win this week against Bethel. Some big performances there. Montgomery won 60-12. I got some different stats for this one too. I got them from Virtus Padden. I think it was on Friday or Saturday night or Saturday. I think I got them, and then I think they were updated. So some of these might not be super correct, but Bobby McGovern had I had him down for 269 yards and 5 touchdowns. Great game for him. I think the huddle was updated to have like 300 yards passing. Either way, great game for him. And then Aiden Pressler, same thing. I got that he had 7 catches for 174 yards and 4 touchdowns. Crazy big game. And then I think it was updated then to go for like eight catches, 232, and then 4. But so again, either way, crazy games for both those guys. And then Presser also had a punt return touchdown as well, so 5 touchdowns for him last weekend. And then Isaiah Wright caught a touchdown. Quentin Perez, their running back, had 2 rushing touchdowns. Chris Adams had 2 interceptions, and then Khalil Hubbard had a punt return touchdown too. So all Montgomery in that one. That was a good bounce back win for them. And we'll see if they can keep it going this week against Napa.
Sorry to cut you off, but lots of talent on that Viking team, no doubt about it. So
absolutely,
we were just kind of wondering when they were going to put that all together. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
we knew it would come. So yeah, that's definitely a flash of what they can do this year. So hopefully more of that to come this year. But last couple of games here we'll talk about. But Petaluma beat Santa Rosa again. Work Club stays with the Trojans. One of the oldest running rivalries here in Sonoma County. I think they've been playing since the 1890s, which is crazy. Two of the oldest, the 2 oldest high schools. I believe it's the 2 oldest high schools in Sonoma County. So, great game for Chase Miller, 219 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and he also had a pick and a sack on defense. So just do it all, kid. And then Ed Burnsich, 112 rushing yards, rushing touchdown as well. And then London Sindel, reigning VVAL Defensive Player of the Year, getting in on the action, 2 sacks, and also a 20-yard rushing touchdown as well. So dudes, again, 2-way studs all over the place there for Petaluma. So, and then again, I think that should be a really fun game this year, Petaluma and Annalee. Or this week, I guess,
just like it was last year, man.
Just like it was, man, that was a crazy game last year. What was that, 50-49 or something?
50-49. I was there, actually. It was 50-49. Came down to Petaluma 2-point conversion to win the game opportunity. Coach Rick Chris called an audible that did not get to the line because the stadium was too damn loud, so nobody heard it, and botched the 2-point conversion try, and Annalee held on. So it was, but both offenses were on full display in that one. That was for sure. But that was such a fun game. So maybe they could replicate it. Who knows?
We'll see. I know both of their defenses look much improved this year, so maybe not the fireworks this year, but that should be a fun game this year, and I'll be writing. I think that's one of the games I'll be writing up as one of our games to watch this week. So, and then last few games I'll highlight here, but we mentioned Casa Grande having a big win this week. Their defense came to play against Berkeley, 42-6.
I
mean, some of these numbers are crazy. I mean, 18 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. Berkeley was held to minus 41 rushing yards, and Casa picked them off 5 times. I mean, like it's about as good of a day as you can have defensively.
That's crazy.
It's about as good of a day as you can have defensively. So, again, also hoping these stats are all right. I know that, it's still early in the season, so sometimes, the stat keepers might not, get everything exactly right. But that's what we have on Max Prep so far. So we're taking your word for it, John. But yeah, great game for them. A couple of guys to highlight too. I mean, Andrew Antonio, John Antonio's, head coach's son, 2 pick sixes. That's a hell of a game. I know he came back from injury, I think the last year or two. So great to see him kind of shining again, at the varsity level. I think he's a senior this year too. So great game for him. 2 pick sixes, 2 tackles for loss. Cody Cornelius, our guy, 3-star, lineman, great kid, going to be playing college football somewhere next year at the Division I level. 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. Great game for him. Seamus Durain, 4 tackles for loss. Again, just down the list, tons of guys performed. And then, Zach Herrera, so far come on really strong at running back. I think he had 2 touchdowns.
He's been having a great couple games. For sure.
He had 2 touchdowns, I think, in their opener, and he had 2 more again this weekend too. So he's looking like a big point of that offense. So Casa, big win for them. And again, should be a really fun matchup this week against Ukiah. That's going to be our game of the week. You're going to be heading out there. And we'll should be fun, but we'll preview that one in a second. But last one to highlight here too, but Pioneer 36, Cloverdale 17. Still no Matty Erickson for Pioneer. We're still not quite sure on his status. He hurt his knee in their season opener, a week and a half ago now against Middletown. Not quite sure the status of it. Again, I saw him last Saturday or 2 Saturdays ago, I guess now. He was walking on it, no pain, but we haven't really gotten an update about how much time he'll miss or if it's serious or what's going on. So, but he did not play again this week, but didn't matter. I'm hoping I pronounced his name right, but Sokane Prack, their sophomore backup quarterback, stepped in, had a great game, 204 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns each to Paula Pereira, and then I only have the last name written down here. What was his name? Oh, good podcasting here. Hold on. Something Allen.
Well, while he looks that up, Richie Tristan had a monster game rushing on the ground, 100 yards rushing with 1 touchdown. And Paulo Pereira, to be fair, he was one of our players who we were predicting could break out this year for sure, and then be a Redwood.
So far, he's having a good game. That's Noah Allen, the other receiver. Apologies, Noah, for not remembering your name. But Noah Allen and Paulo each had 2 touchdowns. So Pioneer's off to a 2-0 start as well. Without Maddie. So it's good to see some other guys stepping up too in his absence, and again, hopefully he can come back and finish out this year and be ready for basketball season too. But yeah, Keenan, that's that's about as quickly I think as we can go through our last week's action. But again, we talked about Windsor, Newman, talked about Ranch a little bit, but any of those other games kind of standing out to you? What are you thinking about the rest of the slate?
If the first 2 weeks are saying anything, Gus, if we take away anything, this is going to be exciting football season. These 2 weeks are delivering like no doubt. I think it was better quality football than at the same time last year. So I think a lot of teams, despite losing a lot, that's been the theme for this season, have just reloaded and came to play. So I certainly think that we're in for an exciting football season. But all right, let's talk about these rankings, because we definitely had some. I obviously wasn't consulted in this because I didn't see anything, but there was definitely some cases to be had, Gus, on your end at least. I know Windsor lost. Cardinal Newman had that big win. Rancho Cotati lost, but St. Vincent had the big win. And obviously the 5 spot could be ever changing. Who the heck knows? But kind of talk us through what you had here.
I know. So it's funny because on Saturday I wrote in our analysis piece, there's definitely going to be some movement this week in our rankings, and kind of after, marinating on it a bit over this weekend, and taking a closer look at how everything kind of shook out. It's actually less movement than I thought there would be, but Yeah, this was, I mean, again, every week it feels like, or like there's been a handful of weeks since we started doing the rankings last year that it's been like, man, like this is really tough. And this was one of those weeks.
Sure.
But that being said, no movement in our top four. Windsor's staying at 1, Newman's staying at 2, Rancho's staying at 3, St. Vincent's staying at 4, and Casa Grande is jumping back into the 5 spot. So, I guess
so. One movement.
Yeah, very little movement, but for as crazy as this week was, really not as much movement as I kind of thought there would be. I mean, again, Windsor losing by 1 score to a reigning state champion, who, by all accounts is one of the best teams in the Sac-Joaquin section, despite they're a smaller school. They only have like 800 kids, but that program is, again, they've won 2 state titles in the last like 3 years. So Escalon is very, very good and should be probably in contention for another state title this year. So, and again, Windsor had them on the ropes late, and just couldn't close it out. So, I don't think a 3-point loss to a reigning state champion hurts them this week. And again, Escalon, I'd say, is a better team than either of the teams that Newman or Rancho have played so far this year. So, and then honestly, I think you could probably say the same thing about Campo this week. Windsor Campo Lindo is going to be an awesome game. Campo's up in Division 1 this year, but they were a very, very good Division 2 team for a long time. And Windsor, again, up in D2 this year and going to be one of the best teams in D2. So this could be a battle of, one of the top Division 2 teams and one of the top Division 1 teams in the North Coast section. And that's where things could be really interesting this week. Again, if Windsor loses to Campo and if Newman can beat Vintage, we're staring at a 3-0 Newman team and an 0-2 Windsor team. And Windsor, having played, again, 2 very, very tough teams. And again, this is all hypothetical, but, this is kind of where, what we have to think about as the guys who make these rankings. So it's going to be hard to kind of keep Newman out of that top spot if they go to 3-0. But then again, you look at the competition level that, Windsor's played in Escalon and Campo. And, Campo played Campo's loss came to Amador Valley. I think that was last week, and it was 6-0. So, and Amador Valley should also be one of the better teams in the NCS this year. So, it's going to be tough if that happens. But I think if Windsor beats Campo, I think they solidly have that 1 spot locked up for a while. Again, unless something else happens. But yeah, I wrote about this too in our in the analysis piece, but I think it's a very real possibility now after that Vacaville win, for Newman. I think, they're probably going to be favored in every single game from here on out going forward, including this week against Vintage. I would not be shocked if they go into that Windsor game. I think it's like early November, last game of the regular season. I would not be shocked if Newman goes into that game undefeated. Just looking at how things are, looking at the teams they have going forward, and no disrespect to any of the teams going forward, but it is just like, Newman, that goal win was a statement. I mean, this team is legit. Absolutely. This year. This team is legit this year. So credit where the credit's due. We'll see how things shake out this week, but the other, we're spending so much time talking about Windsor Newman, but Rancho St. Vincent at the 3 and 4 spot. I mean, again, we've had these rankings. This is the second year that we've been doing these, and I think our top 4 has stayed the same. I think the entire time, or at least some variation of it. It's been those 4 teams in that order in some way. But yeah, this was, I think, the closest we've ever been to, to having St. Vincent slide up into the top 3 and, bump one of the big dogs out, which has not happened yet. But yeah, I mean, again, that Rancho loss, I was kind of thinking, I'm like, all right, well, I don't know how good Redwood is. Like St. Vincent's 2-0, they've beaten, I know Deanza might not be great this year, but Oakland Tech should be pretty good. And
they jumped up a division. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, all these things, but I think just, I think kind of looking at it, like taking a step back and kind of like giving it a few days to marinate a little bit too. This has been kind of the big question all year, or like the last 2 years, is can St. Vincent hang with any of the big dogs here in Sonoma County? The Windsors, the Newmans, the Ranchos,
that's why we were clamoring about all last year, man.
I know.
Them to play each other, but
I think we're kind of back in that. I think we're back in that conversation. I just wish
they were a long conversation.
I know. I really do wish that St. Vincent would play, or if any of these teams would play each other, or if St. Vincent would, was able to play any of these top 3 teams, but just division schedules are already set. It's just not going to happen this year. But the fact that we're even having that conversation is a huge testament to what Trent has done over there with that
Oh,
program.
absolutely.
I mean, yeah. I mean, again, wouldn't be shocked if they go deep in Division 6 and probably are one of the favorites in Division 6 this year in the NCS. So, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's crazy. So we'll see what happens. I do want to talk about the 5 spot a little bit because the 5 spot is probably the most entertaining spot in
It's
all
just
of
the
these
rotating.
rankings. It's ever rotating. But I do want to say, and I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but perhaps Newman playing so well and then Casa bringing it back at Newman towards the end of that game, that might have helped him getting that 5 spot. No.
I'd probably say so. I mean, the Cal Prep rankings are not, it's not the,
Oh,
it's all computer rankings and it's an algorithm, and so it's, taken with, we take it with a grain of salt. But I do think it's an interesting thing to look at every week. But I mean, like Casa won, Casa killed Berkeley this week. But Berkeley's not a great team, and Casa still went up 16 spots 15 spots in the Cal Preps rankings.
If you guys want to see change, go head over to those rankings. it's
those
bizarre.
those ones actually have St. Vincent over Rancho Cotati this week too, which I thought was very interesting. But last thing on that, but I do think a head-to-head matchup between Rancho and St. Vincent, I do think Rancho would win. But again, the fact that it's even a question is, again, testament to what St. Vincent's done. But yeah, Casa, I think you nailed it. I think that, again, that, 2-score loss against, against Newman. And again, I know it was some kind of late garbage time scores for them as well, but still, I mean, again, to hang in that game. Yeah, exactly. To hang in that game and only, lose by 2 scores, I think is a, good sign for Casa. So, I do think that the Casa is going to be good this year, and again, I think that they kind of flexed their muscles this last week. But yeah, I mean, we'll really find out this week too against when they're playing Ukiah, which actually is a great transition because again, Ukiah was number 5, dropped out, bad loss. But again, I think that they have some flashes of some special stuff too this year. And then also too, I'm really curious to see how Annalee and Petaluma do as well. So a bunch of games, a bunch of games between some some bubble teams this week that could really impact our rankings, or at least our number 5 spot next week. So anything else in the rankings, Kienan, or should we jump into predictions and talking about game of the week stuff?
No, I think you made every explanation you could. So if you're still mad at Gus, then whatever.
You can find me on Twitter at K O'Doherty.
Oh, jeez. Oh, here we go. Already throwing me to the wolves, huh? All right. Well, yeah, let's go to our preview and predictions. Gus, our last week you went 9-4. I went 7-6. Did not have a good week at all on my predictions. I did try to hit some homers there. Did not cross the wall, but overall, Gus, you're 17-6. I am 15-8. Let's see. We both got Windsor wrong. Both got Casa right. Both got Monty right. Both got Annalee right. We both got St. Helena right. Both got Petaluma right. Both got Piner right. Split Kelseyville and Sonoma Valley. Gus, you picked Kelseyville, and I picked Sonoma Valley.
Kelsey was good this year. Kelsey was good.
Yeah,
this year. Also for our Lake County people, I don't know if anyone's listening, but Clear Lake looks like the real deal this year. We just haven't seen some of their scores, and they have a bunch of guys back. So I think that's NCL1 is looking like it probably could be Kelseyville Clear Lake race there. But anyway.
Yeah. We so I got Sonoma Valley wrong, you got Kelseyville right. We both got Ukiah wrong. Both got Newman wrong. We both picked Vacaville. We both picked Rancho Cotati. Jesus Christ. We both picked St. Vincent, and then we split. Rosen University Prep and Crystal Springs Upland. I took a shot there, and that pretty much did not hit. Gus, you had said it last week. Crystal Springs Upland is a very, very good team. All right, well, let's get into the predictions and talk a little about it here before we round things out. Game of the week here, Casa Grande at Ukiah. This is actually, on paper, just judging by the rankings and everything, this may not seem like an intriguing matchup, but it is a intriguing matchup for sure. Obviously, Paul Cronin's Ukiah welcoming Casa Grande for week 3 matchup here. This is going to be very interesting. Like you said, Gus, Ukiah without 2 of their star players due to suspension. Casa Grande's defense, waking up, playing the best game they've ever played, despite Danny Mercado, their new quarterback, not having the best game. So this is going to be a very interesting game, but we both have the Gauchos taking this one.
Yeah, this is I feel like through two games for both these teams, we haven't really quite seen the like what each team will look like this year. Like Casa, again, they're very pass heavy. Kind of got beat up against Newman, and then against Berkeley, their defense like completely balled out. And like you said, Danny Mercado, their new quarterback, didn't have the best, 3 interceptions, but it was enough to win. So like, we still haven't seen a kind of a signature Casa Grande game, and then Ukiah too. I mean, even Cronin after they beat Montgomery was saying he's like, we didn't, like we're like Monty's a better team than how they played, and we're probably a better team than how we get, or Ukiah is probably a better team than how they played. And then again, same thing with Dublin. I'm sure that was just a I think that's probably one of those games where you just toss the tape away and then just like, move on to the next thing, move on to the next game. So I feel like we haven't quite seen either team yet at like, what their, what a finished product will look like. And obviously it's week 3, so that's pretty standard. But yeah, I think we're going to learn a lot about both teams this week. See if that Casa defense is, legit, or if Berkeley is just not very good. And then Ukiah, see how, see how and if they can bounce back, from a pretty tough loss. So yeah, good test for both teams. But I don't know, just after last week, I think Casa is looking like the stronger team right now. So I'm going with the Gauchos for this week.
Yep. Yeah, definitely agreed there. Okay. Next up, we're heading up to NCL1 and the ever interesting NCL1 Cloverdale at Lower Lake. I believe, if I'm correct, Gus, that Lower Lake was not one of the better teams at the NCL1 last year. And Cloverdale trying to pick things back up after the loss to Pioneer. But regardless, we both have Cloverdale in this one. But as we know, in the NCL1, anything can happen. So
Yep. Lower Lake is historically, or like last couple of years, has not been one of the better programs over in the NCL1. And yeah, Cloverdale obviously has some question marks this year, and they're trying to piece together. And last week was their season opener. But just historically speaking, Cloverdale's been a better program, and I think they take care of this one by a few touchdowns. So
yeah. All right. Probably our game of the year last year, I would say, or at least one of the contenders. Yeah, well, one of the contenders for sure. Annalee at Petaluma. It's at Petaluma this year. Both teams did lose some key players last year, but both teams are starting to find their groove. It looks like a little bit. Going to be interesting. The main thing, obviously, Petaluma's running run heavy offense versus Annalee's defense, which seems to be doing quite well. But regardless, I think Petaluma takes this one. I just think the Trojans are just better skilled and are going to beat Annalee this year.
Oh man, that's you're going to hear about from some Annalee people about that one. Better skilled, man. Ooh, that's a shot.
Well, maybe I should say better skilled players, not better skilled.
Well, that might even be more of a shot. Oh, we'll see. Know. I know the Annalee guys like to listen to this, so that might fire them up. But
gotta give them motivation, man.
There you go. Gotta give motivation. Yeah, I mean I think this is a bit of a pick'em. Again, Annalee's defense looks much improved. They have Jake Lewis so far has been pretty good in their first couple of games. They beat a good Lincoln team in that in the opener. And then just put up some gaudy numbers against Eureka, and I don't think Eureka is very good this year. But yeah, this should be a very, very good test for both teams. Petaluma obviously played Rancho Cotati in their first game and hung tough. Had some turnovers, but good bounce back win against Santa Rosa last week. So yeah, I feel like these teams are pretty evenly matched again this year. But I think if again, gun to my head, I think Petaluma does take this. I just think that they have some. I think they have some I think their guys who are back make a big difference here. Chase Miller had a big game. Ed Burnsich had a big game. London Sindel, one of the better, best defensive ends, I'd say in this, in the county. I think it's those returners that are going to have the biggest impact for this one. And, like we've said too, Annalee had a ton of replace off of last year's team. And yeah, I just think Petaluma, again, while they don't have the biggest team this year, I think that they're, I think that they have the advantage at the key positions for a game like this. So yeah, I'm saying the Trojans in this one as well.
You said it's so safe.
I did. Yeah, you like
You
that? You
said
like
it's
that?
so safe. Jesus Christ. Okay, Maria Carrillo at Benicia. Obviously, Carrillo, I believe they had a bye last week, did not play.
Yep.
But from the one game we saw from Carrillo, they just absolutely dominated Skyline. Not too, I don't know too much about Benicia, but Carrillo seems to be doing pretty well to start the season, even though they have a bunch of new look guys. But that line is going to be key for Maria Carrillo, no doubt about it. But got the Pumas in this one.
Yeah, Benicia likes to kind of air it out and yeah, pass the ball a lot. A lot of good athletes, and then Ray Carrillo is like just pound the ball, into your face kind of thing over and over and over again. So that worked out well for Carrillo last year, and I think it works out again for them this year. Picking the Pumas again in this one.
Well, yeah, Carrillo does have a great secondary as well.
Yeah,
pretty underrated secondary. All right, Gus, your Greyhounds going to Sonoma Valley. Greyhounds put up some points last week, a lot better than what they were doing last week. So, not last week, last year.
yeah.
Excuse me. So definitely some progress, but Sonoma Valley, couple tough losses going 0-2 so far. I think they get their first win here, at home. Yeah, I just think the Dragons take this one.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. Yeah, Healdsburg definitely showed some signs of life last week. 27 points is the most they put up, I think, in like a year or two, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, I mean, from what I heard too, their new head coach, Randy Parmeter, who's led some, big turnarounds at other programs around the county. Has them moving the ball, which is huge, again, for a program that went 0-10 last year and has really been struggling to, have some success the last couple of years. So a good step in the right direction for Healdsburg. But I think Sonoma Valley, again, they've had two tough losses to open the season, but I think they get right with this one, especially at home too. So I think Sonoma Valley takes this one.
Yep. All right. Let's head over. We got Napa at Montgomery. Montgomery coming off that huge win over Bethel. Napa coming in 2-0. New look Napa team as well. This could be an intriguing matchup. Could be under the radar, kind of flies under the radar matchup for sure. But at the end of the day, we both have the Vikings, Gus.
Yeah, Napa's frisky this year. They're 2-0. I think I read that was their best starts in like the last like 8 years or something like that.
And it's not like fringe wins. Like they had 35-12, 42-14.
Yeah.
They're scoring.
Yeah, I don't think Kennedy Richmond or Irvington Fremont are great programs, but again, for a Napa team that's been struggling the last couple of years, that's definitely again just a really, really good start, a good sign for them going forward, because that has been a program that's been struggling to be consistent the last couple of years. So I think this could be a frisky game. I think Napa could probably hang in it. But yeah, I mean, again, like we saw last week, I think Montgomery just has a lot of firepower that if they can kind of get things rolling, then they're a very good team. And I think they'll have some confidence coming in off after the Bethel win. So I'm going to say Montgomery in this one. Although I think this game is actually going to be in Napa at Memorial Stadium, which is a really, really, really cool big stadium venue in Napa. So we'll see if the home crowd or, if being on the road for Monty can, has any impact because again, they've struggled on the road against Ukiah. We'll see if that has any impact. But I think if the Montgomery team that we saw last week shows up, then I think this is a clear Montgomery win. So,
yep, kind of another pick 'em here, at least for me. San Rafael heading up to Piner. San Rafael obviously played Santa Rosa already and beat them pretty handily. So, but Piner's kind of a question mark right now on whether or not Matty Erickson he'll suit up again this season. But like you said, their sophomore QBs doing well. So I have Piner. I think their weapons are gelling well. I think they have good chemistry. But you are going the other way. You're going with the Bulldogs.
I am. It's been really interesting, seeing the San Rafael program because, I worked at the Marin IJ for a couple years. That was back in like the 2021 during the weird COVID year. And, their program was really struggling and they, couldn't get kids and they were trying to build. And so it's been great to see in the last couple of years, like they've really had a good turnaround. And I think they're an objectively good program now for their size. I think they're Division 5? Yeah. I mean, like, they've had a really good start to the year. I mean, again, they beat Santa Rosa 23-9. They beat Pinole Valley 30-14 last week. So, and again, Piners showed some life too. I mean, again, they beat Cloverdale without Maddie, and they beat, they held on to beat Middletown, but Santa Fe has been playing really well. So I would not be surprised if they win this one. But like you said, I think this is a pick 'em. I think it could be a close game, but I think Santa Fe probably is the winner in this one.
All right, fair enough. Vintage at Cardinal Newman. Gus, we kind of teased this one earlier on in the episode, but I think I made my mistake picking against Cardinal Newman. I think they're, Vintage has always been a very solid program, probably the best one out of the Napa area for sure. But I just think Newman just overpowers them in this one. I think it's just looking like Newman is going to be too good for a lot of these teams coming up on their schedule. So I'm going with the Cardinals in this one.
Yeah, this is a very bad matchup for Vintage. Vintage is a run heavy team. So far this year, they've run 82 run plays to 20 passing plays, just to give you a sense of kind of how their offense is geared. And again, Newman's strength is its line, and also linebackers and such too. So yeah, I think this is a Newman win, and honestly, I think it might be a Newman win by a couple touchdowns. I think this is probably maybe a similar script as last week, against Vacaville. But yeah, I mean, again, that Newman defense is legit, and yeah, this Vintage offense, which is geared towards the run, I think it's just a bad matchup for it. So yeah, I'm taking Newman in this one.
All right, Archie Williams at Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa having a tough year so far. We kind of outlooked that it was going to be a little bit difficult for the Panthers this season. Archie Williams is a little bit on the rise in the MCAL. Definitely kind of middle of the pack, I would say. So I'm going with what's their mascot? The Peregrine Falcons. That's who I'm going with. The Archie Williams Peregrine Falcons. I'm picking them to beat Santa Rosa.
Yeah, I think that's probably how it's going to shake out too. Yeah, Santa Rosa, again, just a growing year, rebuilding year. I know that they probably can't wait for that, league realignment to come soon enough. That'll probably give them a chance to win some games and build a program. But yeah, I do think it probably is just going to be another long year for Santa Rosa. I do think this is a winnable game for them. But yeah, I mean, I think Archie has made some strides the last couple of years. Yeah, they have a tall quarterback who I think is pretty decent. So yeah, I do think Santa Rosa, I do think Archie takes care of business in this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's close. Yeah, but I do think Archie Williams takes it.
Great journalism. Tall quarterback who I think is decent.
6'5", man. 6'5", 205 is what he's listed at. So
that is fantastic. All right.
Hard-hitting analysis here on the PDPreps.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Another game we talked about earlier, kind of like Vintage Newman, but Windsor Campolindo. Campolindo lost, although their defense is pretty good. They did lose a lot of offensive weapons. Mainly, I believe his name was Robbie Campbell or something like that, who's at Cal now.
That was Robbie Mascheroni, I believe.
Robbie Mascheroni, excuse me. Big 6'4" wide receiver. He's gone. I think this is a redemption week for Windsor. I do think it's going to be pretty close. I think Campbell's going to play him really hard, but I think Windsor comes out with its first win of the season. And gets retribution. Although they do have to travel all the way down to Campo, so that's definitely a tough test. But I think the Jaguars pick up their first win this week.
This is going to be a very, very tough game. And outside of Escalon, I think this is probably Windsor's second hardest game of the year. Again, depending on how Newman shakes out and how Rancho shakes out. But yeah, I mean, Campo lost also their like all world quarterback, Dashel Weaver too. I forgot where he's at, but yeah, Campo's now up in Division 1 this year. Mercury News actually picked them to win the Diablo Foothill division, which is one of the tougher divisions, if not one of the toughest divisions. Yeah, in the Bay Area. So this is going to be a battle. Yeah, and Campo has, again, they've been tested already. They've had two very difficult games. They beat Vanden, a very, very good team out of the Sackville Keene section in double overtime. And then Amador Valley, they lost last week in a again, rock fight. We used that term before, but 6-0, Amador Valley won. Amador Valley should also be very good this year. They only lost, they have a loss, but it was to El Cerrito by one score, and El Cerrito should be really good again this year. So Campo is already pretty battle tested. They have a very, very good sophomore running back. So this is going to be, again, a very big test, and I think it'll be a very different test than the one that Escalon presented. I mean, again, still a run heavy team, but a very, very good defense. I mean, this is a very, very tough opening slate for Windsor. I expect this to be a close game. I would be surprised if it's a high scoring game just based on the past results. But again, like we saw in our predictions last week, what the hell do we know? So I'm picking Windsor. Would not be surprised if Campo won, but I do think it's going to be close. But I'm with you. I think Windsor's talent is just going to shine in this one, and they're gonna pull it out. But we'll see.
That was a heck of a game between these two last year as well. That was an amazing game.
I forgot about that. Where Windsor had the lead and then they knelt, and that was a bit of a coaching blunder. But
all right, let's take a break from 11-man real fast. Head down to 8-man football. Roseland University Prep at Tamales. Roseland University Prep 1-1. Obviously, kicked off the year with a 60-8 beatdown of LC Allen, who was in their first year of 8-man football, before losing pretty largely to Crystal Springs Upland this past week. They now face a Tamales team who's 1-0, beat Anderson Valley 44-29 in their first game of the season. Could be an interesting matchup, but I have Roseland University Prep. Gus, looks like you have the same.
Yeah, I think this is a bit of a homer pick for me. Tamales won last year, but after that game, Roseland Prep, I think, rattled off like 4 or 5 straight wins or something like that. So
picked them in new gear, yeah.
Yeah, so that game definitely motivated them. And again, I know that Roseland has a lot of guys that they have to replace this year, but they're moving the ball well. 60 points in their opener, 34 in their second, despite a loss. I think Roseland's playing well. Tamales had a good win open the season too, but again, a bit of a homer pick, but I'm going to say Roseland Prep in this one. It's always hard to predict 8-man games, but I think Roseland Prep wins this one.
Yeah. All right. So next game up, we're going back to 11-man football. Balboa at St. Vincent's. Balboa is 0-1. They played Wakula from Crawfordville, Florida. They lost 41-0. St. Vincent obviously coming in 2-0. 2 big wins they've had so far against the Anza and Oakland Tech. I do not see that changing anytime soon, Gus. I have the Mustangs in this one pretty big, and you are going with the Mustangs as well.
Yeah, I mean, a quick thing on Balboa, they did win the state title in Division 7A in 2021. That was 2 years ago. Last year, I think they were 500. Didn't go super far in playoffs. I don't think. I'm just checking that right now. This is good. Again, more good podcasting here, but they didn't actually. They didn't even make it out of the SF City section. They fell in the championship game to Lincoln, but. Yeah, I mean, again, I think what we've seen from St. Vincent so far through 2 games, I think they're the real deal this year. Again, don't know a whole lot about Balboa this year, but just from what we've seen from St. Vincent, I think this is another dub, and St. Vincent goes to 3-0 this year. So, which could make our rankings tough if Rancho Cotati were to lose to Sacramento, which is the next game that we're going to talk about right now.
Yeah, it is. It is great transition there, Gus. Rancho Cotati at Sacramento. Rancho Cotati won this matchup last year at home, but obviously we've been talking about the, losing a lot of players and so on and so forth. Tough trip to Sacramento as well. Definitely a little bit of a trek. But we're both sticking with Rancho in this one. We think they bounce back after that tough upset to Redwood. But that youth could have gained a lot of experience in that loss. So we're sticking with the Cougars in this one, Gus.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. I know that the Rancho coaching staff, when I talked to them, this was a game that they were, I don't want to say worried about, but there was definitely one that was on their radar. I believe they mentioned that Sacramento had a player or two who were like some Division I prospects who I think were hurt last year that didn't play in that game. And yeah, I mean, Sacramento is 0-3 this year. Rodriguez at a Fairfield, they lost by 10. They lost to Wood by 3 points. And then Inricum, which is a Sacramento powerhouse, they lost 68-0 last week. So it's been a tough start for them. This is going to be a home game. They're hosting Rancho, so I'm sure they're going to be, fired up to finally get on, get in the win column in front of their, home crowd. Sacramento, again, they have some dudes who can play. I mean, they only have a couple games of stats on Max Preps, but a couple guys over, close to 200 yards rushing so far, and they have a freshman quarterback who can sling the ball a little bit too. So, I think on paper this looks like a pretty easy Rancho Cotati win, but Sacramento has some talent, and like we've seen, we can't really trust what we see on paper all the time after last week. So, I am taking Rancho in this one. Again, maybe a bit of a homer pick, but I think this is going to be a battle. Some big physical boys out there in Sacramento. And yeah, I do think this will be a good test for Rancho's defense, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll see. I mean, if Jacob Pro can keep doing what he's doing, if Poto Hale can keep doing what he's doing, I think Rancho's fine. But I think this should be a battle out there in Sac.
Absolutely. So that wraps up our predictions for this week. Exciting slate of games. Another exciting slate of games, no doubt about that. So yeah, that'll pretty much be it for this episode. Gus, anything else on the docket for us before we head out?
Nothing else really. It's crazy we're already in week 3. But yeah, I'm going to be probably heading down to Campo Lindo this weekend for that game, for the Windsor game. I think you're going to be heading up to Ukiah for the Casa Ukiah game, and then I think we'll have some coverage from Montgomery, Napa, and then round up with a bunch of other games, including the Newman game as well. So, yeah, we're rolling right along. Preseason slate is winding down for a few teams already, which is, again, kind of nuts. But, yeah, it's been a great start to the season so far. And, yeah, thanks to everyone who's been watching and listening and subscribing and reading and all the good stuff. So we'll keep churning these out every week. But, yeah, thanks for tuning in and looking forward to a good week 3.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'll see you next week.